Chapter 8. When Principalities Wrestle. Hundreds of millions of years ago, and long before recorded time, there was another civilization on Earth called Tellaria, also known as the First World. It was a very advanced society full of wonders never before or since imagined. A place where the maracel grew freely and plentifully, a world completely in harmony with nature and spiritually in tune with the One. So, long before our paradise was ever lost, the Tellarians lost theirs as well. Their Adam, however, did not bite an apple. Instead, it was a substance crafted by their own hands, Nilka flesh. Their lust, their need for it, led to their societal decline and ultimate demise. Nilka flesh was highly unstable and difficult to control. With Tellaria teetering on the precipice of imminent disaster, the 4 leaders responsible did nothing to mitigate the risk. Instead, they chose to secure their own escape plans. While the fires raged, they quietly slipped away unnoticed into outer space. After they left, Tellaria burned like a sun for 1,000 years. Their ships settled into vast elliptical orbits past the outer boundaries of our solar system, where they remained frozen in hibernation until the time was right to return. Initially, 2 of them arrived. The flames were gone, and the Cambrian explosion had already repainted the surface of the planet with new life. They were astonished, finding animal and vegetable life flourishing over land, sea, and air. They never learned whether it survived the fires or if this new life was planted here by someone else. Nonetheless, they were pleased and decided to stay. Little is known of this husband and wife team. Fairly insignificant and not long-lasting was their influence on this new world. They found a home in the land of Nod, where they grafted some of their DNA into the indigenous life forms there, as well as bearing children of their own. Giants they were in the land. Some evidence of their existence was passed on with descendants laying homage to them. They left hints, myths, and legends etched or painted mysteriously upon stone walls of caves. Countless generations would follow, wondering and imagining the plights of these gods and rulers from another world. Centuries later, another Tellarian couple landed. Their names were Ki Avdam and Om Eve. Theirs is a story of love and loss, disappointment and restoration. Outsiders they were, refusing to yield to the old social order of Tellaria. They barely escaped the fires, destined to live out their lives in this new world. In harmony with nature and with the Creator of all, their days were mostly peaceful, except for one incident that affected the quality of their days from that moment on. But still, they were blessed and bore many children. To this day, they are still known as the last 2 humans to have full access to the Tree of Life. Finally, the last 2 fugitives of the flaming planet made their debut. Wise enough to avoid the pitfalls of any earlier developmental periods, they entered this present age long after their fellow Tellarians had passed away. These were the ones directly responsible for the destruction of the First World. Babel and Lumer were their names, but they did not arrive at the same moment, for they were in separate ships and traveled independent from each other. In fact, there was much contempt between them, since they held each other to blame for the cataclysmic end of their home world. Lumer was first to arrive about 10,000 years ago. He quickly subdued the primitive species of intelligence he came in contact with. They appeared to be ripe for his form of dominance and subjugation. Among his self-anointed names of deity were Marduk, the sun god Ra, Enki, Ra-Astan, and a plethora of other provincial nomenclatures. He blanketed the world over the centuries, basically unopposed. No one dared challenge his supremacy and rulership. But creating the perfect world can be a painstakingly long process. So instead of aging prematurely, he would leave the planet for hundreds of years at a time and re-enter his state of hibernation. But before going, he made sure to train and reward loyal subjects as earthly overlords. These pharaohs, emperors, and kings would maintain his order and dictatorship, keeping the masses under the control of the great god from the sky. Once satisfied the world would be in capable hands for the next few centuries, Lumiere would travel back into space until his next rendezvous. Always in the wake of his retreats back into space, new folklore, mythologies, and subsequent religions would develop around these godlike appearances and departures. Unfortunately, Lumiere found no evidence of Maricel in this new world, nor would the Maricel he brought with him grow in this virgin soil. This was a problem, since each departure and return would require vast amounts of Maricel energy. So he needed to stockpile as much gold as possible, since it was a key raw material in the manufacture of his Nilka flesh products. Around the year 7000 BCE, Babel finally made his grand entrance, only to find his partner hard at work in the Mesopotamian basin.
Lumiere, is that you?
Yes, it is me, Babel. I was wondering when you would have the courage to return.
Courage. Courage has nothing to do with it. My timing, as always, is impeccable.
Say what you will. This is my world now. Be gone before I have you eliminated.
All right. You and what army?
You have been away too long, Babel. This world answers to me now. Wherever you go, whatever continent, whatever corner, you will not be able to hide. I am the sun god Ra. I am Chiton. I am Ashtur. I am Gaia, Enki, Marduk, Inti. I am Veracocha. Across the globe, wherever you go, it is my world now.
Names. What's in a name? They will forget you. You know that.
No, they will not.
I have taught them the sciences, the methods to prosper and flourish. There are already countless homages to my work and my names.
They'll forget you. What was your name again?
Leave, Babel. Leave before I have you killed.
Go ahead. Try. You know you don't have the fortitude to eliminate me, even if you could. I still have the Maricel. Yes, free Maricel, Lumiere. You know that is all that really matters. Babel was not mincing words. He knew all was not well with Lumiere and the collective, for they were growing weary of these new earthlings. They were fickle and stubborn, not always willing to worship the hand that fed them. And now, with Babel's return, an age-old rivalry was rekindled, both parties still believing this world rightly belonged to them. Fights and skirmishes broke out across the regions controlled by the collective. Babel was on the move. There was, however, a more serious problem: how to grow Maricel in this new world. Fabricating Nilka flesh was no longer as easy as it once was. With such primitive civilizations, the only possible way to establish a stable, mind-controlling network would be for both Tellarians to join forces. At first, the thought of a new alliance was completely out of the question, as memories of their failed initial collaboration were still on both of their minds, even after millions of years. So for a while, they purposely stayed out of each other's way. The collective continued to amass vast stockpiles of purified gold, or Goshenbla as it was called in Tellaria, while Babel held on to his considerable store of free Morricel stowed in the cargo room of his ship, the Vimana. Since Babel had not yet transferred his soul or consciousness from his original body, he made briefer and less frequent visits to Earth. So he would resort to more drastic measures in acquiring his measure of gold, including raiding, conquering, and plundering some of Lumaire's unprotected and vulnerable kingdoms. But Babel was getting greedy, now returning more frequently, leading to the inevitable clashes of these two titans. The battles and struggles for power were occurring far too often. Blood was spilling at alarming rates over land and resources. Something had to be done. This world was clearly not as big as they once thought. A truce had to be called, and a summit was finally scheduled. There is only one clear answer, Babel. You must join our collective. Together we will properly subdue and govern this world. Lumiere, you know this is impossible. I could never be a part of yours or any other collective. I detest the practice. Why should I share my knowledge with anyone? I like the fact that I am who I am. You, on the other hand, will someday have hundreds, perhaps thousands of souls swimming inside that skull of yours. How can you ever know who is saying what or which one of you is really in control? We have our ways. Besides, we will never face death as long as there are host bodies to sustain us. What is your security? The Vimana is my security, Babel snapped, referring to his Nilka flesh space vessel. Look at me, not a day over 35. I won't have to worry about transferring bodies for quite a long time. Eventually, you will have to transfer your consciousness, and likewise you will pay for all the damage and destruction you've incurred. You think you are smart for spending so much time away? No, it will catch up with you, and all this will belong to me. We will finally gain the humans' trust, and you will be nothing more than a pariah, a devil, an outcast, and that, after all, is who you really are, Babel. Say what you will, Lumiere, but we both know your words are disingenuous. The truth is, you grow tired of this place. I can see it. I can sense it. Why else would you spend so much time and resources on those probes you've been sending out? Babel knew the collective had finally located another planet in a nearby star system that could sustain life. They sent probes there and data was returning. It was confirmed the planet was habitable, and more importantly, its soil would sustain Morricel growth. All that was needed were a few select subjects to propagate the species, along with enough Morricel to fuel his ship, and of course, more Morricel to plant when they got there. What of it? Yes, we've sent probes out. It's no business of yours. Oh, come now, Lumiere. We've known each other for too long. There's only one reason why you would invest so much of your precious free Morricel to do this, especially when it's so needed here. Why, this is madness.
All right,
It's true, shouted Lumiere, pushing his way to the forefront of 14 collected souls. We have found another world, a better world than this one, a place where we can start over with no opposition from you or anyone else. You want this planet? You can have it. This world is no longer the Tellaria we once knew. The ground here is cursed. How can anyone live in a world without Morricel? It's a wonder that this race has survived without it. No connection, no communication except for their limited tongues. The slow pace of development here is unbearable. The Lumiere Rastan collective, well versed in the arts of hegemony and dominance, knew what made a planet spin. They knew how to amass wealth and power, how to bring a world to its knees. But the people of this age had a disposition toward rebellion. This was a problem for the collective, never quite understanding why humans, when exposed to his enlightenment, would not want to learn more, to serve him, to worship him. Of course, at first, The masses were attracted to his power, knowledge, and ingenuity. But in the end, they resisted, not wanting to become indentured servants or slaves, and in time would outgrow their need for gods like Ra'astan. They have this hopeless sense of independence. You have not been here long enough to experience it yet, Babel. One moment, they willingly worship you. The next, they're cursing and rebelling against you. Growing Morrisel here or on any other world is not the answer. You just need a secure Nilka flesh network. We can build one again. Once it's in place, the problem is solved. Now you are the one speaking madness. You don't have enough Goshendla for a network, and neither do we have enough Morrisel. No, but together, my old friend, if we pool our resources, your gold, my Morrisel, it is possible. And why would we do that? We would only continue fighting for control of this world. We will either end up destroying it once again or destroying each other. No, that does not have to happen, Lomer. You help me get this world under control, and I will surrender my free Morrisel to you. That will equip you with more than enough energy to get you to your new world. The plan was intriguing. Together, they could manufacture enough Nilka flesh to create the network that would make Babel the unquestioned leader of the planet. And the collective would have enough power to make the interstellar trip to their next paradise. It took a while for them to agree, but finally both parties negotiated their second alliance. Work commenced. Babel gathered an army of millions, all servants and slaves, mostly through brute force and loathsome deception. Babel's tower was finally taking shape, but he was not yet completely finished with his demands on the collective. Both space vessels would be needed. One was needed near the tower. The other would be required to transport a ground-built satellite up into orbit. Lots were drawn. To the chagrin of Lumiere and the collective, the Black Knight was chosen to escort the satellite. It was the envy of all First World space travelers, although there were faster and more powerful vessels, like Babel's Vimana. The Black Knight was the only ship capable of expanding its Nilka flesh hull to 10 times its normal size when necessary. Its weapons capability was second to none and boasted razor-sharp maneuverability, making it a threat in any given battle scenario. For this mission, the Black Knight would be unmanned as it carried Babel's payload into orbit. After the satellite was in place, the Black Knight stayed to make sure the network connection was secure and stable. Like proud parents, the collective watched nervously as their pride and joy executed its mission without a flaw. Communication between the Vimana and the Black Knight was running smoothly at first. The final phase would be to establish the connection between the tower and the satellite. Initial testing shows all workers receiving our transmissions. The mind control link has been secured. They are now one voice, one people for you to lead, Babel. This concludes the terms of our agreement. I will now claim the Morrisel from your ship, fuel the Black Knight, and then leave this world. Wait, my instruments just detected something very unusual. I haven't seen anything like this since Tellaria. You are stalling. No. Look, there it is, a Tellarian vessel with 2 figures emerging from the ship. One of them appears to be our old friend, Enoch. Babel answered with flippant sarcasm hiding deep hatred. This was very bad news for the Alliance. Enoch was a fellow Tellarian, one who had an axe to grind with both of them. How is this possible? We sent Enoch's ship on an irreversible course, and now he returns. But even more disturbing was a ghost-like image in Enoch's ship, for it was a trans-dimensional image. That could mean only one thing. The half-realm.
The one place they could never enter, the one thing they could never control.
The image was that of a woman from their future, the one and only Gloria Fiveland. No other being from either age of existence had ever spent more time in the half-realm than her. She was part of a team that stopped Babel and the Collective from completing their tower and taking control of the human race. But that is a story for another time. The tower project was finally in disarray. Babel and Lumiere could no longer control their rebellious hordes, and their plans quickly disintegrated into mistrust and chaos. A large portion of the tower was blown up, a distraction, a smokescreen designed to offer Babel enough time to cut the connection between the Vimana and the Black Knight. Before Lumiere could react, Babel was once again headed for interstellar orbit.
Babel, where are you going? You haven't given me the Moracell yet.
And you have not secured the network yet.
There's nothing here for me. Farewell, my friend. You can't do this. We've negotiated terms. You must obey the agreement.
I owe you nothing.
Dear Lumiere, you have much to learn about agreements. Oh, by the way, the satellite. It's already falling out of orbit. It's crashing and burning as we speak.
My Black Knight!
Don't worry. She's fine, just stranded up there for now. I know you'll figure out a way to retrieve her. Might take you a while, but you'll figure it out. You are always the smart one, anyway. Damn you, Babel!
The communication link went silent. Babel was gone. Lumiere had no choice but to leave the tower and the workers behind. For the following 5,000 years, the Collective would see many changes. Many new, fresh, young host bodies selected to sustain Lumiere, and far too many innocent lives destroyed in the process. But through it all, his age-old obsession with reaching that new world never changed. If only he could find a way to lure Babel back to planet Earth. In the next chapter, we continue this brief history of two worlds. We find the Collective alive and well in the 20th century, still wreaking havoc and amassing vast riches of gold and power. The Collective finally figures out a way to get Babel back to Earth, and we find out how Gloria and Michael Fiveland are directly involved in this age-old war between two maniacal principal powers of darkness.